Good Wednesday morning, everyone, and welcome into today's daily Bible reading for October the 25th. Today we are reading together, beginning our read through Second Chronicles. It's good to remember, of course, that First and Second Chronicles, well, they were just known as Chronicles. They weren't divided up as they are in our Bibles in the original Hebrew text. That's okay. We have them as we have them, but just don't reset. Don't try to get in a different mind space as we move from First Chronicles to Second Chronicles. We're just keeping on the same ideas, mainly being this is a retelling of history, not an exhaustive retelling of history, but more so this is a retelling of history for a theological purpose to again get the point across to the people of Israel who have returned to the promised land after the exile, that God's promises remain, that he is still going to institute his king, and that they need to become the people that God created them to be. And we're working through now the transition from David to Solomon, and it was David's great desire for him to be able to build a house for Yahweh. But Yahweh took that responsibility from him and gave that to Solomon. And now we're going to see Solomon beginning his reign. We're going to see some good, we'll see some not so good, and then we're going to conclude in chapter 2 with some good things here in the first couple chapters we're going to read together, because they're relatively short chapters. So we will go ahead and put them together and read them together today. So we're in the first chapter of Second Chronicles. Good save, Nick. Second Chronicles chapter 1 and Second Chronicles chapter 2 for today. The reign of Solomon is going to span about 9 chapters here in Second Chronicles, and then we'll start getting into all the many kings that come after him. So let's read here in Second Chronicles chapter 1, beginning in verse number 1, that tells us, Solomon, son of David, strengthened his hold on the kingdom. Yahweh, his God, was with him and highly exalted him. Then Solomon spoke to all Israel, to the commanders of thousands and of hundreds, to the judges, to every leader in all Israel, the family heads. Solomon and the whole assembly with him went to the high place that was at Gibeon, because God's tent of meeting, which Yahweh's servant Moses had made in the wilderness, was there. So basically, this is where the tabernacle was. We're told that David had brought the ark of God from Kiriath Jearim to the place he had set up for it, because he had pitched a tent for it in Jerusalem. But he put the bronze altar, which Bezalel, son of Uri, son of Hur, had made in front of Yahweh's tabernacle. Solomon and the assembly inquired of him there. Solomon offered sacrifices there in Yahweh's presence on the bronze altar at the tent of meeting. He offered 1,000 burnt offerings on it. That night, God appeared to Solomon and said to him, "Ask, what should I give you?" And Solomon said to God, "You have shown great and faithful love to my father David, and you have made me king in his place. Yahweh God, let your promise to my father David now come true, for you have made me king over a people as numerous as the dust of the earth. Now grant me wisdom and knowledge that I may lead these people, for who can judge this great people of yours?" God said to Solomon, "Since this was in your heart, and you have not requested riches, wealth, or glory, or for the life of those who hate you, and you have not even requested long life, but you have requested for yourself wisdom and knowledge, that you may judge my people over whom I made you king, wisdom and knowledge are given to you. I will also give you riches, wealth, and glory, unlike what was given to the kings who were before you, or would be given to those after you." So Solomon went to Jerusalem from the high place that was in Gibeon, in front of the tent of meeting, and he reigned over Israel. Solomon accumulated 1,400 chariots and 12,000 horsemen, which he stationed in the chariot cities and with the king in Jerusalem. The king made silver and gold as common in Jerusalem as stones, and he made cedar as abundant as sycamore in the Judean foothills. Solomon's horses came from Egypt and Ku. The king's traders would get them from Ku at the going price. A chariot could be imported from Egypt for 15 pounds of silver, and a horse for nearly 4 pounds. In the same way, they exported them to all the kings of the Hittites and to the kings of Aram through their agents. Chapter 2, Solomon decided to build a temple for the name of Yahweh, and a royal palace for himself. So he assigned 70,000 men as porters, 80,000 men as stonecutters in the mountains, and 3,600 as supervisors over them. Then Solomon sent word to King Hiram of Tyre, "Do for me what you did for my father David. You sent him cedars to build him a house to live in. Now I am building a temple for the name of Yahweh my God, in order to dedicate it to him for burning fragrant incense before him, for displaying the bread of the presence continuously, and for sacrificing burnt offerings for the morning and the evening, the Sabbaths and new moons, and the appointed festivals of Yahweh our God. This is ordained for Israel permanently. The temple that I am building will be great, for our God is greater than any of the gods." But he was able to build a temple for him, since even heaven and the highest heaven cannot contain him. Who am I then that I should build a temple for him except as a place to burn incense before him? Therefore, send me an artisan who is skilled in engraving to work with the gold, silver, bronze, and iron, and with purple, crimson, and blue yarn. He will work with the artisans who are with me in Judah and Jerusalem, appointed by my father David. Also send me cedar, cypress, and algum logs from Lebanon, for I know that your servants know how to cut these trees of Lebanon. Note that my servants will be with your servants to prepare logs for me in abundance, because the temple I am building will be great and wondrous. I will give your servants and the woodcutters who cut the trees 120,000 bushels of wheat flour, 120,000 bushels of barley, and 120,000 gallons of wine, and 120,000 gallons of oil. Then King Hiram of Tyre wrote a letter and sent it to Solomon. Because Yahweh loves his people, he set you over them as king. Hiram also said, "Blessed be Yahweh God of Israel, who made the heavens and the earth. He gave King David a wise son with insight and understanding, who built a temple for Yahweh and a royal palace for himself. I have now sent you Huram Abi, a skillful man who has understanding. He is a son of a woman from the daughters of Dan. His father is a man of Tyre. He knows how to work with gold, silver, bronze, iron, stone, and wood, with purple, blue, crimson yarn, and fine linen. He knows how to do all kinds of engraving and to execute any design that may be given to him. I have sent him to be with your artisans and the artisans of my lord, your father David. Now let my lord send the wheat, barley, oil, and wine to his servants as promised. We will cut logs from Lebanon, as many as you need, and bring them to you as rafts by sea to Joppa. You can take them up to Jerusalem." Solomon took a census of all the resident alien men in the land of Israel after the census that his father David had conducted, and the total was 153,600. Solomon made 70,000 of them porters, 80,000 stonecutters in the mountains, and 3,600 supervisors to make the people work. And that is the text of First Chronicles chapters 1 and 2. As we're looking at these couple opening chapters, again, Chronicles just flows together as one. So keep that in mind. We're not changing settings. We're not changing focus, anything like that. We're just transitioning from David into Solomon's reign. And the first thing we want to note here in chapter 1 is the fact that God shows great grace toward Solomon, incredible grace toward Solomon. It tells us right off the bat that Solomon, son of David, strengthened his hold on his kingdom. Well, why? Why was that able to take place? Well, because Yahweh, his God, was with him and highly exalted him. Yahweh was with him and highly exalted him. And here early on, we see a great focus on the relationship between Solomon and Yahweh. And I appreciate so much the language here that it speaks about that Yahweh was his God. That's a good thing. Remember, that wasn't said. I honestly don't recall at all if that was ever said about Saul. It was certainly said about David. And now, thankfully, we have this said about Solomon as well. And Solomon seems to want to communicate with Yahweh, so much so he's going up to Gibeon to the tabernacle. He's eventually going to bring, that's brought back to Jerusalem. But he wants to inquire of Yahweh, and he does so. And that night, Yahweh appears to Solomon and said to him, "Ask, what should I give you?" And Solomon expresses, first off, appreciation for the great kindness that Yahweh has shown to his father David, and that he allowed for David's son, for him, Solomon, to be in his place. And And he, calls on Yahweh for the promise that Yahweh made. Yahweh God, let your promise to my father David now come true. For you've made me king over a people as numerous as the dust of the earth. Now grant me wisdom and knowledge that I may lead these people well. So Solomon, very, very well done to his credit, requests not riches, not anything of that, not anything of that sort, not military might, not even a long life, but he asks for wisdom and knowledge in order to lead this people well. He understands, I believe, the gravity of the responsibility that has been laid before him to be the leader of Yahweh's people. And God responds to this request of Solomon in a great way. You didn't ask for riches or wealth or glory or for the life of those who hate you, your enemies. You've not even requested for long life, but you've requested to be able to do this job well, and that's great. Yahweh certainly exalts him for this request and says, that you're going to get that, but I'm also going to give you the things that you could have asked for. I'm going to give you the riches, the wealth, the glory, so much more than even any of the kings before you, again, which is only two, but I think that just shows how exorbitant the glory of Solomon was here moving forward. Now, not everything is good, because it doesn't seem as if Solomon exactly put that wisdom to great use. You might read this text and think, well, this is just an example of how much Yahweh is blessing Solomon, except for the fact that we do have Deuteronomy 17, which talks about the need for Israel's kings to not accumulate for themselves horses or horsemen or chariots. So this is not exactly a great thing that Solomon is importing all of these horses and chariots from Egypt, and especially not a great thing at the end of chapter 1, where he starts supplying them to the Hittites and the kings of Aram through their agents. Those are the enemy. And some of these chariots and horsemen and horses, no doubt, are going to come back to be used against Solomon's people in the future. We transition to chapter 2, where it tells us that Solomon decided to build a temple for the name of Yahweh and a royal palace for himself. Well, that might seem kind of strange language there, because wasn't that David's plan already? Didn't David already commission Solomon to do this thing? Well, yes, he did, but Solomon still had to decide to do it. He had to take the step up and make this an initiative, not just in theory, but something that was actually going to be carried out. So he ends up sending word to King Hiram of Tyre, which was very much known for its wood, of different types of trees that could be used for the building process. And it's very interesting that we have already spoken in or written in 1 Chronicles 22 and 1 Chronicles 29 that David had already supplied a great deal of the materials that were going to be needed for the temple, but Solomon needed even more for his vision of what the temple would be in its fullness. So he writes to Hiram and says, I need even more resources than what I currently have. So Hiram hears of this, and he is willing to talk shop with Solomon and to do this deal with him in return for the cedar and the cypress and the algum. He says, I will send you 100,000 bushels of wheat flour, 100,000 bushels of barley, 100,000 or 110,000 gallons of wine, and 110,000 gallons of oil. That's just doing business. Solomon, for as great as he was, needed to be fair and needed to be a good businessman here. So he does. He has a good exchange with Hiram, and Hiram writes back to him and says, because Yahweh loves his people, he set you king over them. So I think Hiram recognizes that, he's not just dealing with Solomon. He's also dealing with Solomon's God. So it'd be good for him to really respond in kind. And I think a lot of this gets back to the good relationship that he had with David, as seems to be the background here with what's going on. So he praises, in fact, blesses the God of Israel, which is kind of funny to me. It's interesting because Solomon just said that my God's better than your God and any other gods. In essence, he does say explicitly that Yahweh is, let me see here, Yahweh Yahweh, the temple I am building, verse number 5, will be greater for our God, will be great, for our God is greater than any of the gods. I mean, he didn't say better than your God, Hiram, in those exact words, but I mean, that's what he means. But Hiram, I don't really understand or know his mindset toward Yahweh. Maybe he really does see Yahweh as just one God among gods. Maybe he even recognizes him as being the greatest of the gods. But whatever the case may be, he blesses Yahweh, God of Israel, who made the heavens and the earth. And he gave King David a wise son with insight and understanding that he had just requested from Yahweh and that he's putting into good use here. So yeah, I'm gonna send you, what you need. I'm gonna send you this man, Hiram Abi, who seems to actually be part Israelites. His mother is from the daughters of Dan. She has married a person from Tyre, which I don't really know if that's the best thing or not, but it just is the thing. And he says, yeah, I'm going to send you everything that you request. I'm going to send to you. Let's see here. But verse 15, let my Lord send the wheat, barley, oil, and wine to his servant as you promised. So we're going to have a very fair exchange here. You send us what you want. We're going to send you you send us what you've offered. We're going to send you what you have requested, and we're going to make this work. So, I mean, think about this. This seems to be a good thing. I can't think of too much that really just shows the error in anything that Solomon did or David did in this transaction with the king of Tyre. Again, it's a little further away, so it might not be one of those nations that really had to be kicked out of the land. So that might be part of the backgrounds going on here, why they can have this interaction with them. But he's going to take these materials, and then it's good to have materials, but you got to have people who are going to use those materials, right? Well, who's he use? Well, he uses the resident alien men in the land of Israel, not Jews. He's not going to use his own people in the construction of the temple. He's going to use these resident aliens, over 150,000 of them. 70 of them are going to be porters, 70,000 are going to be porters, 80,000 are going to be stonecutters, and then they're going to have 3,600 supervisors. The labor force is not going to be from the Jews themselves, and this is certainly preferred, I guess, from a Jewish perspective, certainly prefer that as opposed to what's going to happen later on in Israel's history, where there is very unfortunately great oppression of the people through heavy taxation and things of that nature. But for now, things seem to be going well. Things have started off on a pretty good foot. The request from Solomon was good. The fact that Yahweh is described as his God is a great thing. So we started off well. We're going to continue looking tomorrow as we read together. We'll just be reading chapter 3 tomorrow. Is that right? Just chapter 3? Yeah, just chapter 3 tomorrow. Just a short read tomorrow, get us started on the tabernacle. And then, what we might do, I might call audible tomorrow. Might read 3 chapters just because it's not very much, and then have a little catch-up day on Friday. I'll think about that though. We'll figure that out. But tomorrow or Friday, at some point over the next couple of days, we're going to read chapters 3, 4, and 5. So I hope that you'll tune back in for that. If you have any questions or comments about this text, anything you might notice as being different from what we saw in the Samuels or in the Kings, please feel free to leave that in the comment section below. Really looking forward to being with everybody tonight for our Bible studies at 7 p.m. Hope that you're making plans to be there as we continue our study in the auditorium class on prayer in Numbers chapter 14. I think getting into our next text, which I don't have in front of me. Let's see. Don't need to see my book, but we'll figure out what that is tonight. I didn't write it down, so should have done that. Nevertheless, we'll be finishing up our look through the prayer of Numbers chapter 14, and then start getting into the next text as well. Well, I hope you have a great rest of your day, everyone. Looking forward to seeing you tonight. Take care, and God bless.